Tenshira X Wednesday by Rimuchi. Nevermore Academy. Nevermore Academy loomed in the distance, its Gothic architecture casting long shadows under the dim gray sky. Towering spires pierced the heavens, and intricate gargoyle statues guarded its corners, as if daring anyone to approach. The walls, a mix of dark stone and creeping ivy, seemed to pulse with a life of their own, whispering the secrets of centuries past. Nestled in the heart of a remote forest near Jericho, Vermont, the academy was a haven for the supernatural, vampires, werewolves, sirens, and more. Founded in 1791, it served as a sanctuary and a training ground for outcasts who couldn't find a place in the world of the mundane. Inside Principal Larissa Weems' office, an air of tension mixed with curiosity filled the room. The Adams family, Morticia, Gomez, and their children, Wednesday and Pugsley, sat stiffly across from the polished desk. Morticia, poised and elegant, exuded an aura of quiet authority. Gomez, ever the romantic, remained close to her side, his charm softening the atmosphere. Pugsley, seated awkwardly, fiddled with his hands, while Wednesday sat upright, her pale face devoid of emotion, her dark eyes quietly dissecting the room. Suddenly, the heavy office door creaked open. In stepped Cal Nightshade and Maria Nightshade, followed by their son, Rimuru Nightshade. The Nightshade family moved as if they owned the air around them. Cal, tall and commanding, radiated a quiet menace. His piercing red eyes seemed to cut through everything they landed on. Maria, equally imposing, carried herself with a regal grace that bordered on predatory. She was striking, with sharp features and a knowing smile that hinted at centuries of wisdom. Behind them, Rimuru Nightshade stood, a smirk playing on his lips. His dark hair framed his pale face, and his piercing crimson eyes carried an unyielding intensity. His black attire, tailored yet simple, matched his aloof demeanor, giving him an air of savage elegance. He walked as if the world owed him reverence, his presence exuding a mix of indifference and danger. Principal Weems looked up from her desk, her professional demeanor faltering for just a second. Ah, Nightshades, welcome. Maria inclined her head gracefully. Thank you, Principal Weems, she replied, then turned her attention to Morticia. Her lips curved into a smirk. Still as punctual as ever, Morticia. Some things never change. Morticia tilted her head, a sly smile tugging at her lips. Of course, Maria. You know I always make an entrance before anyone else can. Maria chuckled and gestured toward Rimuru. This is my son, Rimuru Nightshade. Morticia's eyes glimmered as she studied him. He's quite the mix of you and Cal. The resemblance is undeniable. Maria nodded in satisfaction. And I must say the same for Wednesday. A perfect blend of you and Gomez, Morticia. Cal, clearly uninterested in pleasantries, interrupted, his tone brisk. We can reminisce later. Let's get to the point. Maria sighed but didn't argue. Principal Weems gestured to the chairs. Please, take a seat. The Nightshades settled into their seats, with Rimuru slumping slightly, exhaling audibly. Can we skip the long introductions? He muttered, his voice cold and sharp. I'm already bored to death, even though I can't die. Principal Weems shot him a glare, her calm professionalism slipping as a shiver ran down her spine. Her eyes flickered briefly, and her composure cracked for just a moment. Inside Rimuru's mind, Raphael, his inner guide, activated. Less than notice. Activating fear domination. Target will see master's true form. Success. Greater than. Weems, vision distorted. For a fleeting moment, she saw Rimuru as he truly was, a dark figure with ominous dragon-like horns and an aura of malice that suffocated the air around him. Behind him loomed the shadow of a massive black dragon with glowing red eyes, its maw dripping with darkness. Maria tilted her head, concern flashing in her eyes. Is something wrong, Principal? You seem uneasy. Weems blinked rapidly, forcing herself to regain her composure. No, nothing at all, she lied, her voice a touch higher than usual. I was just admiring the striking resemblance between Rimuru and his parents. Thank you, Maria replied with a smile. Rimuru leaned forward, his smirk deepening. What's wrong? Did you see a dragon? Everyone turned to him, confused. A dragon? Pugsley asked. Why died? Rimuru shrugged, his tone indifferent. Just a thought. Gomez chuckled. Your boy's got quite the mysterious streak, doesn't he? Cal smirked. You have no idea. Even we can't figure him out half the time. Wednesday sighed dramatically, cutting through the conversation. I hate every second of this. Rimuru smirked, leaning back. You can say that again. This place already bores me. Both Morticia and Maria turned sharply toward their children, their voices sharp with reprimand. Watch your tone, Morticia snapped at Wednesday, while Maria shot Rimuru a glare that could freeze fire. You're representing our families, Maria added, her tone cold. Don't embarrass us. Rimuru and Wednesday exchanged a glance before muttering half-hearted apologies. Meanwhile, Gomez and Cal exchanged knowing smiles. They're practically identical, Gomez said, amused. Cal nodded. Let's hope that means they'll get along. Principal Weems cleared her throat, regaining control of the room. Now, I've already arranged new uniforms for both of you. They'll be in your rooms. I hope they meet your standards. Rimuru raised an eyebrow, his smirk returning. Standards. Let's see if this place has any. Weems ignored the jab and stood, gesturing toward the door. Let me show you to your rooms. If you don't mind following me. Rimuru's smile turned predatory. Actually, I do mind. Weems sighed heavily, brushing off his comment as she opened the door. She stepped into the hallway, expecting the families to follow. Rimuru chuckled darkly and trailed after her, his movements calculated and slow, like a predator toying with its prey. Wednesday sighed, casting one last glance at her parents before following. Behind them, Gomez and Cal shared another amused look, already speculating about the chaos their children would bring to Nevermore Academy. Principal Larissa Weems led the way through the dimly lit, expansive hallways of Nevermore Academy. Behind her trailed the Addams family, Morticia, Gomez, Wednesday, and Pugsley, followed by the Nightshade family, Cal, Maria, and Rimuru. Morticia walked with her signature grace, Gomez beside her, speaking animatedly about the Academy's architecture. Cal, with his quiet intensity, walked with Maria, who occasionally glanced over her shoulder at Rimuru, who lingered behind the group. Wednesday walked a few paces ahead of Rimuru, her expression unreadable but her silence filled with judgment. The hallway stretched endlessly, lined with stained glass windows that cast eerie patterns on the stone walls. Flickering torches adorned the walls, their flames illuminating grotesque carvings of mythical creatures and ancient symbols etched into the stone. The floor was polished marble, cold and unforgiving underfoot, reflecting the solemnity of the academy. From behind her, Wednesday heard a quiet sigh followed by the measured footsteps of Rimuru. She stopped abruptly and turned to face him. Why are you walking behind everyone? She asked, her tone dripping with annoyance. Rimuru smirked, his crimson eyes glinting in the flickering torchlight. Just annoying someone. Looks like it's working. Wednesday sighed deeply, her lips tightening as she turned back around. Congratulations. You've succeeded. Rimuru chuckled softly, his voice low and predatory. Thank you for the acknowledgement. As the group continued, Wednesday kept her focus straight ahead, determined not to let Rimuru get under her skin. Meanwhile, Pugsley shuffled nervously, stealing glances at Rimuru, whose silent demeanor seemed to radiate an aura of danger. Eventually, they arrived at a door adorned with an ornate plaque engraved with the name Rimuru Nightshade. Principal Weems stopped and turned to address the group. This will be Rimuru's room. I've been informed that he prefers to stay alone. Maria nodded approvingly. That's accurate. Does he have any restrictions on personal items he can bring here? Weems shook her head. There are no restrictions. He's free to bring whatever he likes. Rimuru leaned against the doorframe, his lips curling into a faint, smug smile. That's the only decent thing I've heard all day. Cal crossed his arms and nodded. For once, Rimuru's right. A room without restrictions is the least the academy can provide. Maria turned sharply to glare at both of them. Her eyes narrowed dangerously, but Rimuru remained entirely unfazed, meeting her gaze with cold indifference. Before any tension could escalate, Principal Weems cleared her throat. You're welcome to follow us, or you can settle in here, Rimuru. Maria quickly interjected, I'd like to see Wednesday's room as well. I want to spend more time with Morticia. She turned to Morticia with a warm smile. If you don't mind. Morticia returned the smile, her voice smooth and amused. That's a wonderful idea, Maria. I'd enjoy the company. Weems nodded and gestured for the group to follow her. As they walked, Wednesday sighed audibly, her frustration thinly veiled. Pugsley shuffled alongside her, muttering something under his breath about how strange this place felt. Behind them, Rimuru smirked to himself, his sharp eyes taking in every detail of the hallway. His voice, calm and cutting, broke the silence. Great. More walking. Wednesday didn't respond, only rolling her eyes as she kept pace with her family. After a few more turns, they arrived at another door. Weems knocked lightly, and the door swung open with a burst of energy. A girl with short blonde hair stood in the doorway, her expression bright and welcoming. Welcome, Rumi, Enid Sinclair exclaimed, her bubbly energy practically vibrating through the room. She stepped forward as if to hug Wednesday, but Wednesday stepped back abruptly, her icy glare stopping Enid in her tracks. Enid froze, her cheerful smile faltering for a moment. Oh, sorry about that, you don't seem like the hugging type. I'm not, Wednesday replied flatly, her voice devoid of emotion. Enid nodded quickly. Got it. No hugs. Weems stepped into the conversation, addressing Wednesday. What do you think of your room? Wednesday surveyed the space with a blank expression. This is absolutely the worst room I've ever seen. Enid blinked, then tilted her head. Why do you look so dead inside? Before Wednesday could respond, Morticia interjected smoothly, she was born like that. Enid's attention shifted to the people standing behind Wednesday. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw the Nightshade family, particularly Rimuru, whose piercing crimson gaze met hers with disinterest. Who are they? Enid asked Weems, gesturing toward the Nightshades. They are the Nightshade family, Weems explained. Their son, Rimuru, will also be attending the academy. Enid turned her bright smile toward Rimuru. Hi, what's your name? Rimuru sighed, stepping forward with deliberate slowness. His eyes locked onto hers, and his voice was low and chilling. Rimuru Nightshade. And you are? I'm Enid Sinclair, she replied cheerfully, though her smile faltered slightly under his intense gaze. Rimuru's lips curled into a faint smirk, his tone dripping with amusement. Interesting. A werewolf. Enid's eyes widened in surprise. How did you know? Rimuru didn't bother answering. He turned on his heel and walked back to stand beside his parents, leaving Enid visibly unsettled. Weems cleared her throat, attempting to regain control of the situation. Enid, I'd like you to show Rimuru and Wednesday around the academy. It'll give them a chance to settle in. Enid nodded enthusiastically. Sure, I'd love to show them around. Weems turned to Rimuru and Wednesday. Take this opportunity to explore while we handle the rest of the formalities. Wednesday said nothing, her silence speaking volumes, while Rimuru sighed dramatically. Great. More walking and pointing at things. Despite his words, he followed Wednesday and Enid out of the room, his sharp gaze scanning the surroundings with calculated precision. Enid chattered happily, seemingly unfazed by Rimuru's cold demeanor, while Wednesday walked ahead, muttering something about this being the worst place imaginable. Rimuru trailed behind, his steps slow and deliberate, a smug smile tugging at his lips as he observed the two girls in front of him. This is going to be entertaining, he murmured under his breath. Wednesday and Rimuru trailed behind Enid Sinclair, who was practically buzzing with excitement. Her lively personality was almost unbearable to the two darker souls who followed her, their steps deliberate and silent, a stark contrast to Enid's bounding energy. Welcome to Nevermore Academy, home to the weird, wonderful, and wildly misunderstood. Enid began with a dramatic wave of her hands, her voice echoing slightly as they walked through the expansive courtyard. You're gonna love it here, trust me. Let's start with the basics. Her enthusiasm was met with a heavy sigh from Rimuru, who muttered under his breath, that's highly doubtful. Unfazed, Enid gestured toward a group of students playing a chaotic, aggressive version of dodgeball in the courtyard. The players were leaping unnaturally high and moving with incredible speed, their sharp claws glinting in the sunlight. Over there are the werewolves. My pack, obviously. Some of us are still working on fully wolfing out, she explained, flexing her fingers as if to show off her own claws, but we've got the speed, the claws, and the killer instincts down. Oh, and that's Ajax. She pointed toward a Gorgon wearing a beanie, leaning against a column and looking effortlessly cool. Rimuru glanced at him briefly, his crimson eyes glinting with disinterest. Enid continued, Gorgons are great, just don't make eye contact unless you want to turn into stone. Temporary, of course, but super inconvenient. Rimuru sighed audibly, his patience wearing thin. Fascinating, he said flatly, his tone dripping with sarcasm. They moved past the fountain at the center of the courtyard, where a group of ethereal figures gathered, their melodic hums creating a strange, hypnotic ambiance. Those are the sirens, Enid said, lowering her voice slightly. Hypnotic voices, natural swimmers, and they kind of have this holier-than-thou vibe, but I swear, some of them are cool. Oh, that's Bianca. She's a lot. Rimuru's gaze followed Enid's gesture to Bianca Barkley, a confident siren who radiated authority. As they passed, Bianca smirked knowingly at the group. Rimuru offered her a polite nod, his expression unreadable. She's called the Queen Bee by some, Enid added, wrinkling her nose. Queen Bee, huh, Wednesday echoed, her tone laced with faint amusement. That's interesting. Rimuru snorted softly. Overgrown fish, more like it. Enid turned to him, her eyes narrowing. That's rude, but also, kind of true. Bianca's smirk faltered slightly as though she sensed Rimuru's dismissive remark, but she said nothing as they continued past her. As they headed toward the main building, a female student accidentally bumped into Rimuru. She dropped a pair of sunglasses and stammered an apology, but her nervous demeanor faltered under Rimuru's icy stare. In his mind, Raphael's voice chimed in. Less than, Master. She is a vampire, but not of the Nightshade bloodline. Would you like me to analyze further? Greater than. Rimuru mentally dismissed the thought. No, they're not worth the effort. But still, a vampire. He bent down, picked up the sunglasses, and held them out to the girl. His crimson gaze bore into hers as he spoke, his voice low and cold. Next time, watch where you're going. Understand? The girl nodded quickly, murmuring her thanks before hurrying away. Enid watched the exchange with mild surprise. Vampires. They're not as dramatic as the movies make them seem, but they definitely hate sunlight. You'll see them rocking sunglasses indoors a lot. Rimuru turned to her, his voice sharp. Excuse me, I'm a vampire as well. Enid's eyes widened in shock. What? How are you walking around in sunlight, then? The Nightshade bloodline isn't affected by such trivialities, Rimuru replied smugly, his tone making it clear he considered the question beneath him. Wow, Enid said softly. That's new. Cool, I guess. As they passed a classroom, the faint shimmer of the air around a student caught their attention. The student's hands hovered over a crystal ball, their face set in deep concentration. Psychics are a mixed bag, Enid explained. Some can see the future, others can read minds, and then there's Xavier. He's an artist who can bring his paintings to life. Pretty cool, right? Is this not over yet? Wednesday asked, her tone laced with growing irritation. Just a little longer, Enid promised, grinning nervously. Suddenly, a male voice called out, Hey, Enid. The group turned to see Ajax approaching, his beanie slightly askew. Enid's cheeks flushed faintly as she greeted him. Hey, Ajax, what's going on? Did you hear about the new students? Ajax asked, his tone conspiratorial. One of them is your roommate. Rumor has it she dumped piranhas into a swimming pool to get revenge on some bullies. And the other one's a vampire. People are saying he's as cruel as an actual demon. Enid glanced nervously at Wednesday and Rimuru. Ajax frowned. Why aren't you saying anything? Enid stepped aside, revealing Wednesday and Rimuru. Ajax's expression froze as he took in the two newcomers. He swallowed hard and stepped back. Wednesday spoke first, her tone calm but cutting. The rumors aren't entirely accurate. I did release piranhas into the swimming pool, but it was for revenge. Not everyone deserved it, though. Rimuru sighed and added, his voice as cold as ice, as for me, the rumors are true. I am as cruel as a demon. Cross me, and you'll find out firsthand. Even Wednesday turned slightly to look at Rimuru, surprised by the blunt savagery of his statement. Enid's eyes widened, and Ajax stammered, I'll see you later, Enid. He turned and bolted, disappearing down the hallway. Wednesday sighed heavily. I've had enough of this tour. Without another word, she turned on her heel and walked away, her dark braids swaying with each step. Enid sighed in defeat. Well, I guess that's it for the tour, then. This has been more than enough, Rimuru muttered, his voice laced with boredom. He turned to leave but stopped, glancing back at Enid. His crimson eyes gleamed with a faint hint of amusement. Enid, you should tell him how you feel. Enid's face turned beet red, and she stammered, What? Before she could finish, Rimuru disappeared into thin air, his body dissolving into a swirling mass of shadows. Enid stood alone in the hallway, sighing heavily. Why does everything here have to be so complicated? With that, she turned and walked away, her thoughts swirling with confusion and frustration. The sun sank lower in the sky, its fading light casting long, eerie shadows across the grounds of Nevermore Academy. The families of the Adams and Nightshade clans stood near their respective cars, preparing to part ways with their children, who would soon be navigating the Academy's dark and strange corridors. The air felt thick with unspoken tension and the quiet weight of departure. Gomez Adams, ever the dramatic figure, strode over to his daughter, a wide grin on his face. His voice carried that familiar affectionate warmth. My little dead Rose, I'll miss you terribly, he declared, enveloping Wednesday in a bear hug that she endured without protest. Her arms remained at her sides, stiff as stone, refusing to embrace the sentimentality. He pulled back, still smiling, and patted her head as if she were still his little girl. Be strong, mi Flor Mortoria, he added, his voice soft, almost wistful, before turning to walk back to the car. Wednesday glanced at her younger brother, Pugsley, his face a mix of nervousness and resolve. Try not to get bullied, she said, her tone as deadpan as ever. Pugsley, unable to suppress the swell of emotion, suddenly lunged forward, wrapping his arms around her in a tight, almost desperate hug. I'll try, he whispered, his voice cracking just a bit. He pulled away, a reluctant look in his eyes, and shuffled toward the car. Morticia Adams stepped forward next, her expression serene, yet full of an unspoken depth. She reached into the folds of her dress and pulled out a small, intricately crafted crystal ball. Call us anytime, she said softly, placing the sphere in Wednesday's hand. She then leaned down, planting a kiss on her daughter's forehead, but her lips never actually touched the skin, lingering just above it as if she were avoiding the warmth of affection. With a final glance, Morticia joined the rest of the family in the car, and Wednesday was left standing alone, her gaze unchanging as she watched them pull away, the sound of the engine slowly fading into the distance. Meanwhile, Maria Nightshade stood firm, her posture commanding as she addressed her son, Rimuru. Listen to me, Rimuru, she began, her voice low and intense. I don't want any incidents. No draining anyone's blood, no killing anyone. Do you understand? Rimuru stood with his arms crossed, his expression cold and emotionless. Fine, I won't. Maria's gaze softened slightly, but Cal Nightshade, Rimuru's father, couldn't help himself. He chuckled lightly and added, Maria, you're being too strict. Rimuru, if you do have to kill someone, just make sure no one notices. And if they do, wipe out their entire family. Simple. Maria shot him a glare, pushing him away lightly. Cal, don't encourage him. Cal shrugged nonchalantly, smirking as he leaned back in his seat. I'm just giving practical advice. Maria sighed and turned her attention back to Rimuru. I mean it, Rimuru. Don't even think about it. Rimuru sighed, his tone flat. I said I won't, didn't I? Maria stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him in a hug. Rimuru hesitated, but eventually, he reciprocated, his arms stiff but there. His mother pulled away, smiling faintly before nodding her approval. Eva, the family's maid, stood by the car, ever polite, with her hands folded neatly in front of her. As the family began to pile into the car, Rimuru caught her attention. He raised a hand, halting her. Wait, Eva. She looked up, her eyes wide with curiosity. Yes, master. Is there something you require? Rimuru's crimson eyes locked onto hers as he took a step closer, his presence almost unnerving in its intensity. Hug me, he said, his voice smooth, almost coaxing. Eva blinked, surprised. Master, that would be inappropriate. It's fine, Rimuru said, his voice low and seductive. I insist. There was a long pause as Eva hesitated, clearly flustered by his request. But after a moment, she sighed and nodded. As you wish, master. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around him in a quick, almost uncomfortable hug. As she did, Rimuru leaned in just a little, his breath brushing against her ear. This will protect you, he whispered, his words soft but laden with intent. Eva pulled back, her brow furrowed. Protect me. From what? Rimuru's smirk widened ever so slightly. From the others. Some of the old kids might take issue with me. You'll be in the crossfire. This barrier will keep you safe. Eva nodded, her voice soft, her gaze still slightly uneasy. Thank you, master. Rimuru didn't answer, instead stepping back and watching as she climbed into the car. With a final glance at the night-drenched academy grounds, he turned and began walking away, his coat flowing behind him like a dark shadow in the fading sunlight. As the cars from both families pulled away simultaneously, Rimuru's expression remained as unreadable as ever, and the sound of their engines faded into the distance, leaving only the haunting echoes of departure. Inside the Nightshade family car, the atmosphere was quiet. Maria, her eyes narrowed, turned to Eva. Eva, why did you hug Rimuru? Eva kept her eyes on the road, her hands steady on the wheel. Master asked me to, mistress, she replied simply. Cal chuckled from the backseat, clearly amused. I see. Eva's cheeks reddened ever so slightly. My apologies if I acted inappropriately. Maria waved her hand dismissively. There's no need to apologize. Nothing inappropriate happened. Cal nodded in agreement, his expression thoughtful, but neither of them pushed the subject further. Eva said nothing more, her focus back on the road, though her mind lingered on Rimuru's cryptic words. Back in the Adams family, as their car wound its way through the thick forest surrounding Nevermore, Morticia turned to Gomez, her expression concerned. Are you sure she'll be okay? Gomez smiled reassuringly, patting her hand in a gesture of comfort. Don't worry, my love. We've ensured she'll be well looked after. With a grin, he reached forward and pressed a small button on the dashboard. Beneath the car, a hidden compartment slid open, and a disembodied thing, crawled out silently, its movements quick and precise. The hand moved with purpose, scuttling away into the shadows as it headed toward the academy. Morticia smiled faintly, her worry easing. Thing will keep an eye on her. Gomez nodded, his grin widening. Precisely. No one looks out for family better than Thing. Meanwhile, outside the academy, Rimuru stood in the shadows, observing the Addams family's peculiar thing, as it scuttled across the grounds. His crimson eyes narrowed slightly, studying the tiny figure as it darted across the yard. Interesting, he murmured to himself. This place might not be as dull as I thought. With a snap of his fingers, a shadow seemed to emerge from the ground beside him. It swirled, forming into a shape resembling Rimuru himself, only faceless and with skin a few shades darker. Claw, his shadow familiar, stood before him, a silent figure of white, his presence almost ethereal. Rimuru glanced at Claw, his expression still calculating. I want information about that hand, he ordered coldly. Find out everything you can. Understand? Claw nodded without a sound and, in an instant, vanished into the shadows, his form dissolving into the darkness like a wisp of smoke. Rimuru stood alone for a moment, his eyes still fixed on the path Thing had taken. His lips curled into a faint, knowing smirk. With that, he disappeared into the darkness as well, leaving Thing to continue its journey unbothered. As the moon rose high above Nevermore Academy, its pale light cast an eerie glow across the grounds. Somewhere, deep within the academy's walls, secrets were already beginning to unfold.